This is to confirm that, subject to receiving a satisfactory employee's reference, it is agreed to offer you an assured short-hold tenancy of the above-named property for an initial period of 6 months, commencing from a date to be agreed. The agreed rent is £395 sterling per calendar month, payable in advance, but exclusive of local council tax, water rates and other utility services. In addition to the first month's rent, there is an equivalent amount to be paid as a security holding bond, to be held by the landlord against any loss, damage, dilapidation, etc., but which is returnable at the end of the tenancy without interest, less any such deductions if applicable. Furthermore, there is an arrangement fee of £125 sterling in respect of the preparation of the tenancy documentation, taking up of references and general administration costs. My invoice in respect of these fees is enclosed herewith. I will contact you shortly to arrange a mutual convenient time for me to check you into the flat this Sunday, 22nd of January 2006. Agreement for an assured short-hold tenancy unfurnished. This agreement made this 23rd day of January 2006. The landlord hereby agrees to let and the tenant agrees to take the premises known as Flat 2, 10 Granville Road, Harrogate, North Yorkshire, HG1 1BY, for a term of 6 months commencing on the 23rd day of January 2006. The landlord hereby agrees as follows: to keep the exterior of the premises in good repair, to keep in good working order the provision of electricity, gas, if appropriate, water and sanitation. The tenant hereby agrees as follows: to pay to the landlord the rent of £395 sterling per calendar month, exclusive of local council tax, water rates and other utility services, payable in advance from the date of the commencement of the tenancy. To keep all landlord's fixtures and fittings in good order and repair, and to make good all damages and breakages. To be responsible for the cost of all repairs and replacements, save those repairs and replacements caused by normal wear and tear. To pay all gas, electricity and telephone charges attributable to the tenancy. Not to do or permit any waste, damage or nuisance or anything which may be an annoyance to the landlord or to any occupiers of the premises adjoining. Not to sublet in whole or in part the said premises without permission of the landlord in writing. Not to interfere with, modify or add to any electrical wiring without the permission of the landlord in writing. To use the premise solely for the purpose of a dwelling house. Not to carry out any structural alteration or addition to the premises without the permission of the landlord in writing. Not to affix to the exterior of the premises any advertisement or sign of any description. To permit the landlord, his/her servants or his/her agents to enter and inspect the premises from time to time and to carry out any necessary repairs or maintenance. Not to determine the tenancy before the expiry of the term, except by notice in writing of 1 month's length if the term is 2 years or less, and of 3 months if it is more than 2 years. On the termination of the tenancy, to agree to deliver up the premises together with all the landlord's fixtures and fittings in good and tenable repair and condition. In the event of any rent being in arrear, whether expressly demanded or not, or any other breach by the tenant of the terms of this agreement, the landlord may re-enter and take possession of the premise and terminate this agreement without prejudice of his rights to recover all unpaid rent and other damages liable through any other breach of all the terms of this agreement. The following special conditions shall be included in this agreement. Subject to the landlord's consent, on termination of this agreement, a further tenancy may be entered into for a 6 or 12-month term. Please note that the security holding bond may not be used as a final payment of rent in the event that the tenancy is determined or not renewed. Any change of utility provider must be notified in writing to the landlord or his agent. No decoration of the premises is to be undertaken without the prior consent of the landlord. The front forecourt and the rear yard form part of the tenancy and as such must always be regularly swept, cleaned on a weekly basis and kept in a neat and tidy order. Rubbish must be placed in the dustbins and if full, be fully contained in refuse sacks. Right, we're here in the bathroom for quite an important reason. If you look up, you can see in the ceiling that there's paint coming away from the plasterboard. And if you look over the other side, you can see water damage there to paint on new plasterboard. And if you look down here, you might be able to make out the green tinge. I think that is probably water damage or mould that was on the wallpaper, which has either been papered or more probably painted over. I began my tenancy with Scott's Property on the 28th of January 2006, and on the 22nd of July 2006, according to my records, the roof collapsed in here. Now what actually happened was I came home from lunch, from work, came home for lunch from work on that date, came in here and found that the area you see from there all the way across here had collapsed into the bath there. And what we think had happened is that water had built up in the roof space above, and a slight drip, perhaps the day before, had resulted in the whole thing coming down. I left the mess, obviously, for Mr. Scott to see because of insurance problems, but the mess was actually left rather a long time. In fact, there was a hole in the ceiling up here for several months. Not long after the ceiling came down, Mr. Scott, myself and the insurance people arrived, and it was planned that I believe the bath was going to be replaced, the floor was going to be redone, the walls of course were going to be repapered and painted, the roof mended, and the roof on the outside of the house was also going to be mended as well. Of that, what happened was the roof got mended, and the roof on the outside was also mended as well. Nothing else has materialised. Some 3 months later, on November the 22nd, I know that the roof was completed by that time. It was early in the morning, I believe it was a Sunday, could have been a Monday, and I was awoken by the phone, which was Mr. Scott telling me that the landlord, Mr. Smith, along with the painter, was coming round. In fact, I had to hang up on Mr. Scott because they had appeared at the door. I am supposed to be given due warning in my contract for people coming round. It was interesting because the outcome of that was that, of course, I was not prepared to receive visitors. The house was not up to the standard that the the landlord wanted, and of course he then got Mr. Scott to report back to me that it was not good enough. Although I very much doubt that the words were dictated to Mr. Scott, but he did a fantastic job of, well, utterly humiliating me, basically. Yes, he had a point, but, you know, if I'm given the due time, then I can prepare for visitors. and since then, of course, there hasn't been any further problem on that level. I hasten to add that during that 3 months there was no offered deduction in rent, and I didn't openly seek it myself. I was convinced at the time that Mr. Scott was doing everything he could to hurry up the insurance company, but I now have my doubts about that, really about his competence. So the letter that was sent to me was also sent to my guarantors, financial guarantors. I have no idea why they would be sent if I was not actually being removed from the premises, or they were in need of the money that I couldn't pay, which there was never an issue with that. I suspect it was because my guarantors were my parents, which is a little bit annoying, and something I feel Mr. Scott should not have done. 23rd of November 2006. When your landlord, Mr. Smith, called the other day with the contractor to repair the bathroom ceiling, he was appalled at the dirty, untidy state of the flat and the unpleasant aroma therein. He had evidence of broken, discarded biscuits and other food items on the floor in various rooms, which resulted in an all-over unpleasant smell throughout the flat. I too had witnessed this condition some months ago and brought it to your attention. I am afraid I have to ask you to take immediate action to tidy the flat and maintain it in a clean and tidy condition. Otherwise I shall have no alternative but to ask you to find other accommodation. Having consulted with Mr. Smith, it is intended to call and make a monthly inspection of your flat from now on until at such time I think you have made an effort to live within proper conditions. Copy posted to my parents.